Reclaimed is the podcast for the woman reclaiming her power through conversation, somatics, breathwork, plant medicine, and epic conversations. I am Kyla Gagnon, and this is Reclaimed. Hello, sweet friends. Welcome back to the conversation. I have with me today Azaria Glaim. She is a IFBB pro and founder of Rise Daily, which is a holistic health coaching community mentorship space. And she is now a global women's retreat host. I believe she's had 2 of her Rise Daily retreats now, and the 3rd retreat is planned for April. And as a retreat host, I know how exciting this is. I'm so happy for you to listen to this conversation. I have followed Azaria online for years. I have friends who have done her programs and are currently in the Rise Daily self-mastery program, which we talk about in this conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the convo. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to actually start us with a breath practice as well. Just a quick drop in with the breath, if that feels good. All right. Yeah, of course. We all need the breath work. Azaria, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah. So pleased. So yeah, let's just do a quick drop in together. And those who are listening, if you're able to join us, please do. Of course, if you're driving, maybe hold that thought. But if you are not driving, I'm going to just have us sit. You can totally do this standing if that feels better for you, but both feet flat on the ground. And if you are sitting and you can actually lean your spine back onto the support, go ahead and do that. And if it feels okay for you today to close the eyes, let them come down. If that's not feeling good, just a soft gaze down towards the floor. And noticing even right here, does my body feel a bit rigid, or do I feel like maybe I'm holding on to something? Go ahead and just shimmy, shake, roll the shoulders, stretch, whatever you need to do to move any energy out. And then find yourself in a place of stillness, lengthening the spine upwards towards the sky. Soften your shoulders down and relax your jaw. And just notice here the first breath that comes to you. How does that feel? Is the first breath spacious? Does it feel like it's maybe held in certain spots? So go ahead and bring your attention to your belly and see if it's possible to fill a breath into your belly. Letting that breath go. And again, next breath, can I fill my belly? Letting that breath go. And one more, can I fill my belly? And letting that breath go. Again, any tension in the body, shoulders, torso, just letting that roll or move through. And with your next mindful breath, can I breathe into my rib cage, into my diaphragm, into the center of my body? And letting that breath go. Again, can I breathe into the center of my body, filling my rib cage, my diaphragm? And letting that go. One more time into this particular space, right in the center of your body. Letting that go. Noticing again any desires or needs to move, shake, shimmy, roll, stretch the body. Let's bring another mindful set of breaths up into the chest. So on your next breath, intentional breath, can I breathe up into my chest, into my heart, into my sort of upper rib cage, armpits? And letting that breath go. And again, breathing into the upper chest, heart, ribs. And letting that go. One more time into this space. And letting that go. And we'll take 10 breaths together, breathing into all 3 areas. Letting your inhale fill all 3 areas in one breath. Taking one breath in and out together before we begin. And your next breath will be our first together, into the belly, ribs, up into the chest. And release. Again, in through the belly, ribs, chest, breathing in through the nose. If it feels possible and good, exhaling the mouth. In through the belly, ribs, chest, in through the nose. Out the mouth. And again, in and up through the nose. And out the mouth. Filling belly, ribs, chest, heart. And out. Again, filling every cell in your body, belly, ribs. And the next 5 breaths in silence in your own time, filling your entire body. And really taking your time on your last 2 breaths and letting the inhale and the exhale be as gentle as possible. And bringing in almost a sense of silence as you release your final breath. And just coming back into your stillness to notice here in your body what feels alive, what is here for you. Again, if the body feels to move in any way, to stretch or sway, let that be allowed. And in your own time, in your perfect way, coming back into your body, into your space, into the day. Mm. 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 Hello.
I think for like the last 4 years at least has been my saving grace.
Yeah.
Do it every morning and all throughout the day.
Yeah.
And there's truly nothing more powerful in my experience than that stillness and connecting with it. Yeah. Everything comes from that space. So that was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I couldn't agree more. Big fan over here.
Yeah, I am too. Like I don't teach it, I practice it, and I like yourself. And I use an app called Open, which is really helpful in my journey because of the time change with me being over in Europe and stuff. I always hop on a live call with somebody, like I have memberships and stuff like that. So I use Open, and it's like a really nice breathwork meditation, and I'm on there every day, 3 times per day.
So good. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I'm sure we'll get into that as like how breath came into your life and how you're utilizing it. Before we dive in, I tend to forget this sometimes, and I don't want to forget. I want to ask you the question. The question. Azaria, what are you currently reclaiming?
I'm currently reclaiming giving myself permission to be seen. Mm-hmm. I have, from a whole life, been someone who has, I guess you could say, eyes on her at somewhat all times. Mm-hmm. And depending on the response from other people with that, I tend to shell away or dim my light because it makes people uncomfortable. And I'm also someone who does have slight people-pleasing tendencies, who wants to make sure people feel comfortable. So if I'm too bright or if I'm too seen, I'll dim my light and my kindness and who I am in order to not make you feel a type of way. And I go through weird phases in my life of like, I'll be really strong in my power to be seen, and I'm totally okay with that. And then a situation will come up or something will happen that will guide me to gearing down again. And I want to get to the point in my life where no matter what happens, no matter what situation comes up, I'm strong in that light because it's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's okay if it makes other people uncomfortable. That is my truth. And I don't need to dim that or change that to think that I make someone feel a type of way, because how do I even know that that's making somebody feel the opposite? I don't. I'm just making that assumption that it does. So there was something that happened in the gym like a couple months ago. I did something out of the kindness of my heart for somebody, and it was taken in the wrong way. And now there's like this very weird energy, and it made me kind of shy away of like that I was doing something wrong, when in all reality it was somebody else's insecurities and the way they were perceiving me. So then it was like yesterday actually when I walked in, and I'm like, I'm done with that. I'm done with letting somebody else's energy dictate how I show up just because they may feel insecure or uncomfortable. And I think that's such a big thing in today's day and age too, with being okay with being seen, allowing yourself to be seen in all of you and not to be down to make people feel a type of way.
Yeah. I like round of applause that. Good for you. And I really I appreciate you sharing that, because like you're a beautiful woman, you're a successful woman, you're online, like you're on social, like we see you, like doing the things. And I know this, now I didn't get as deep into this world, and we'll go into that for sure. But even with like the bodybuilding world, the fitness world, like we're standing on stages in teeny tiny bikinis, like one would think, well, they're so confident. Of course they like to be looked at. And it's like, well, there's being seen and then there's being seen. Like there's such a difference there. And so I just appreciate when people who, like, it's easy to put someone like you in a certain place on a certain pedestal. She's got it all. She feels great. There's no problem. She doesn't have any, she's just perfect and has it all together. These assumptions that people can have. So I really appreciate when I hear from people, not just women, but people who one might think has it all together. No concerns.
Isn't that interesting though? How just because someone looks a certain way and has accomplished certain things, we think that they don't have other things that all humans have. For example, maybe people say somebody's like a professional tennis player, right? Yeah. She's human, she plays tennis, she's a great tennis player, but she also has mental health issues going on. And then when that famous tennis player has mental health issues going on, now it's this big thing because she's perceived on this pedestal. But in reality, she's just like us. Just because people have achieved certain things or look a certain way doesn't mean that they're less human. Maybe they've become more disciplined, or they have perfected their craft, or they, whatever the case is that got them to that point. Yes, all of that is true. But we all have the same layers, and we all develop same types of insecurities through certain situations and things that come up. That is what makes us us. And I think it is important, like you said, to mention these types of things so that we don't think that these people that are perceived on a pedestal are different than us, because then we think if they're different than us, then they do things that we can't do, which is ultimately also not true. We all have the same possibilities and capabilities, and it's us to find them and to bring great free from that. My mom was just calling on FaceTime. I'll call her back.
Hey, Mama.
And my phone's on Do Not Disturb. Anyways, yes.
It's okay.
So it's important to talk about because it's true. It goes for all of us. And like you said, being on stage, itty bitty bikinis and flaunting it and walking. And even in those moments, like I can reflect back. It's so crazy to reflect back now being here, but looking back. So like, I'll say my last show, for example, is 2020, I think. Yeah, like 4 years ago now. Crazy. Time is.
Yeah, 2020. What the heck was that?
Yeah, I was in Toronto, and I was, my husband couldn't make it. He was home with the dogs, and I was in Toronto, and I was looking in the mirror, and I'm like so fucking dreaded, and I'm so lean, and I'm like, my muscles are so full, and I've been in this sport for 10 years. So I've been working at this for 10 years, and like tomorrow's show day, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I remember the exact moment just thinking like, you're not enough. It's not enough. And there was something, I think, like with my legs or like the side of my waist or something like that, that I wasn't happy with. And even in those moments of like that top of level, being on the professional pro stage, and I can speak for all competitors because it's a real thing. It's a real dark thing in the competitor world. Mm-hmm. You still find something to critique. So there's two sides of that. There's one side of that is kind of outrageous. Like, how could you ever pick yourself apart and find something at that level? Yeah. But then the other side of that is that's what makes us at that level.
Yes.
So it's like the balance between the two of that's how we got there, is being so specific. And it's not even like I was hard on myself. I wasn't that. I had high expectations. My expectations were high and I would meet them. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be beating myself up, but I would expect greatness of myself every single time I stepped on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, what is the line? Because you have this desire to, okay, it's like acknowledging, honoring, and maybe accepting, and maybe those actually don't have to go together, but let's just say for the purpose of this question, acknowledging and honoring and accepting that, like, okay, I have done a really good job. Wow. Look at what I've done. And then there's the part of us that wants to keep working, like it craves, loves the like next level. And it's like, is there a line? When does it become too much? When does it become, I don't want to use the word like a problem, but like, when does it become, too much, maybe?
I think it becomes a problem when you start treating other people poorly because of your choice to do something that you once loved. That's when it becomes a problem, in my point of view. When you see people that are doing shows for the love of doing shows, because they love doing shows, they love the challenge, they love the discipline, they love all of it, and they're kind to people, keep going. If you're somebody who's doing a show, maybe because you think that you need to do a show to get to a certain level or whatever the case may be, and you're mean to other people because of your choice for doing a show, that's when you need to reevaluate why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. Because at no point in my 10 years of competing would I walk into a gym and I was rude to somebody because I was dieting or I was prepping or I was like 2 weeks up for a show. That is just not my personality. That is not how anyone has to be, but people blame certain things. So if you're blaming the sport for the way you're acting, you need to change directions or take an audit as to why you're doing what you're doing. And for me, it was a personal thing. So it was never about winning a show, although that happened and it was pleasant and I enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. It was always an internal space of, how focused can I stay on something that is so fucking hard to stay focused at and still live a life and still be in a relationship and still have a business and still be a good daughter and be a good friend. So to me, I loved that challenge of, can I do all these things and do them to the best of my ability as best as I can? Mm-hmm. So that's why I lasted 10 years in the bodybuilding world. And I didn't burn out. I never was once burnt out or thought that I couldn't do it. I just chose that I was going to spend more time on my life and my business outside of stage when I turned 30. So I won my pro card at the age of 20. I was the youngest IFBB pro in Canadian history. I won my pro card in 4 weeks. So if you know anything about the bodybuilding world, it takes like years, if ever, to win a pro card. Back in the day, also, keep in mind, it was a lot harder to win a pro card. So nowadays, it's a little bit, I'm going to use the term easier. They give them out more. It's more accessible to get a pro card. So back then, in 2014, it was harder. They were only giving out 1 or 2 per show to get your pro card. So I went from never doing a show in my life to stepping on stage. And then a week after that, another stage. And then 2 weeks after that, another stage, to that stage being nationals to win my pro card. So everything happened like very, very quickly. But I had a lot of enjoyment in it. It was something that I didn't do because of, I thought I had to, or somebody was telling me to do it. It brought me out of a really dark space. Do you want to get into that space?
Totally.
Okay. So bodybuilding actually saved my life. And I would not be who I am without bodybuilding. So before I started doing shows, I'll just kind of take you through like the space that I was. So I was living in Edmonton at the time. And I had been addicted to cocaine for, it was like a year and a half at this point. Okay. So I'm an addict. No one knows. I live in this house. The person I was with at the time wasn't really around much, always working, that whole story. I remember the night exactly. It was a dark evening, cool evening in Edmonton, Alberta. And I had just left the washroom after I chalked up a rail, went into the living room. I got on my hands, my knees, and I prayed to God. I said, God, if you help save me from this, I will spend the rest of my life helping and serving other people. And it was from that moment on that I decided to get clean. Just so happens that it was like weeks after that, somebody found me in the gym, came up to me, said, I think you do really good at doing bodybuilding shows. Do you want to chat? I'm like, what do you mean? Really? You think I would be good at bodybuilding shows? Like, yeah, I'll talk to you. Long story short, we chatted. I got on the call with my coach, who was my coach for 7 years, Darren, out of Toronto. And I was with him for 7 years. I did my first bodybuilding show 4 weeks after, 4 months after I met him. Darren emails me. He goes, "You'll be a pro by the end of this year." I'm like, what is a pro? I didn't really have an idea. And I'm like, that seems fucking crazy, but like, let's go, let's do it. And no word of a lie, that's what happened ever since that moment when I surrendered my life to God. And I said, God, if you help save me from this, I'll spend the rest of my life helping and serving other people, because I knew I was here for a bigger purpose. I knew my mission meant something. And I knew that if I got myself into this mess, God and I could get me out. I didn't want to go to rehab. I was actually like very ashamed that I was using. No one knew. I didn't want to tell anyone. I was like in that space where it was like in the closet, I think they say, like closet user. So that's the last thing I wanted to do, was like go somewhere to get help. But I'm like, I did this to myself. I chose this. And with the grace of God and with my willingness, I'm going to get myself the fuck out of this so that we can make something of this life. And then I did bodybuilding, and that's kind of when my life took a turn for the better, because instead of now numbing myself out and not eating, now I'm eating, learning, teaching myself how to eat, drinking water, eating 5 meals a day. In the gym, I had purpose. Bodybuilding saved my life because it gave me purpose. It gave me a direction. It gave me something to work towards. So like anyone that's wondering, should I just get to the gym? Yes, it will give you purpose. Whether that be a show, whether that be just to have better sex, or whether that be to like what you look like in the mirror, it doesn't matter. It'll give you some type of purpose that will ignite something else within you.
Oof. So at what point did you start to feel confident sharing that part of you? Because you kept that peace in the darkness, in the silence, in kind of that shame space. What was it that gave you the confidence to share that part?
I knew that what I had gone through could be used for the good if I let it. But if I wasn't speaking about it, I'm not going to be able to let it. So it had to be okay. But it took me getting out of it, and this was years out of it, to get to the point where I was like, I feel okay with sharing this. I think so much of the time, especially nowadays, I see women trying to share how they're overcoming something while they're still overcoming it. And sister, it doesn't work this way. You are going through your experience to go through it for you, and you're going to overcome it for you. And if you choose to do something with that mess for your message, you can choose to. But for me, I always allowed myself to get through it, and then I'm going to share on it. That means that I have the experience within self, and I have the tools that I use personally to get myself out of this space, which is what I use with all my clients, which is why when I teach from a place of experience. I've gotten this feeling. Yes, sure, that's great. Nothing trumps experience. If you've been to the deepest of ends and you're working with someone who doesn't know and she's never been there, you're going to be speaking 2 different languages.
Yeah.
So when I speak to my clients and I help my clients through these dark times, it's because I've been there with you. I'm not reading something off a book to give you the best advice that I somewhat heard and I kind of think might work. No, I've lived it, and I'm sharing with you what I've lived and how I've overcome it. And that's where my passion comes from my business. And that's why I know that I have what it takes to help the people, because I've been there. It's not from any other reason.
Yeah. And that's the way. And that really is the way. And I remember thinking too about when I was working as a trainer, and, I spent quite a while. I spent a long time getting my certification. And I remember people just floating through a weekend training and then slapping a personal training sticker on their car and working with people. And it pissed me off. I'm like, that's not it. Like, you can't, No, no. Like you're working with a human, you're working with a human body. It's dangerous. Like there has to be an integrated, there has to be experience, there has to be. And now, like you're doing so much, yes, you still support people in their fitness journey, but you're doing so much more than that. And I want to go into that a little bit. But there's a level of, what do I call it? Importance. Yeah, it's important work when we're working intimately with a human, like not only their physical body, but their their emotional body, their spirit, their experience as a human is tender. And if we don't have any idea of what some of those layers are because we've never felt them before, we're gonna drop some balls and we're dealing with another human's life. I
Yeah.
just really feel the importance of like integrated support, like having people who are working with other humans in a support role know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, so this goes to even the
Ugh.
online space too, and I'm sure you
Yes.
see that all the time. And here's the thing. So when I would see this, because we see it often in the online space, I would also cringe, as you just did. And then I got to the point where it doesn't actually bother me because I know those people that are just doing it off of no degree or no experience, they have no staying power. Nothing like that will ever last. And people that are choosing to work with these people also have to do their own due diligence to say, okay, what is this person's experience? Do they know what they're talking about? Do they have any type of certification? And if people are signing up with coaches that have none of that without them doing the work, then you're a pair. Like work together. You're totally a pair because you're both not doing what it is that you're meant to be doing to work in like harmony to actually create some type of results.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. There's even like I've worked with a few girls like in the past years ago now that had just worked with me and then decided to then classify them as something else, but all that they had was the mentorship through me. It's like, how did that happen? But it does, and it happens often.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to like a sense of integrity, I think is really important. Having integrity in business, having integrity with who you are and how you show up, and not thinking that you can kind of just like blindside people and acting like you're one way and you don't really have any experience or influence in this type of way. So it's really a sense of integrity.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for reframing that.
Yeah.
I needed it in that moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So your journey, like okay. So living room floor on your knees, praying to God. Then we walk into the gym. Someone takes you under their wing. It's like, hey, we're going to do this thing. I have a very similar story actually, which is funny. And so then opens up this decade-long journey of bodybuilding and competing. Tell me how that shifted into the work that you're doing now. And for those listening who don't follow Rise Daily or don't follow you on Instagram and don't know what this new side of your journey is, can you kind of open that up? Tell a little bit about what you're doing now and the journey there. What opened that up?
Because it kind of leads into have always had the sense to help others. When I was, let's say I was 7 years old and a lady would walk by and she's overweight, I would actually say to my dad, I wish I could help her. I wish there was something I could do for this lady. When there is a cafeteria table in a high school, there is what they call the loners, right? The girls or the guys that sit at the end of the table by themselves, no one's around. I would be the girl to go and sit beside the single people, the ones that are by themselves, to be with them in pure silence, but just so they knew that they weren't there alone. I didn't need to say anything. They didn't need to say anything to me. It was just my heart. It's always been my heart. That is who I am. That's just who I am, which is why led me to this point where, yes, I do the fitness, I do the macros, I do the nutrition plans. 1000%. That's an important piece to overall life. I get it, right? I help a lot of women with weight loss. But the thing is that you will never be able to have sustainable weight loss or weight gain or anything to do with your health and fitness goals or aspirations without working on your internal system, your belief system, your self-talk, your stress management, everything that creates the circle of your life. So for the longest time, my identity was wrapped around I'm AZ Fitness and I'm a bodybuilding chick and I'm badass and I'm hardcore and I've always got it all together. That was what the persona that I created around me. So if you go to my AZ Fitness Instagram, that is what you'll see. And now I'm integrating more of other sides of me. But it took a long time to be able to even want to showcase that, because I thought, well, who's going to love me? If I don't showcase my body and what I look like and me in the gym and being all shredded up, who's going to love me? Who's going to want to be along for this journey? I had for the longest time this rooted belief that I was AZ Fitness and that there was nothing else that anyone would love or appreciate about any of the other dimensions that makes me me. So it took a long time and a lot of internal reprogramming and a lot of letting go to understand that people are going to love me for me no matter what I show or don't show. It's me that they love and it's not my body. Well, some people love the body. Those are not the people I want around, right? The body's the body. I love to work on it, but it doesn't make me me. Yeah. So with the energy work and the mindset work and the reprogramming, the self-talk, I was working with clients strictly on health and fitness, just their training goals. But I was noticing the ones that I was helping with on the side with the mindset work, with the internal programming, with their self-belief, those were the girls that were having incredible results. And it's because you'll never be able to achieve anything in life that you internally don't believe you're capable of. And if your internal story doesn't match the one where you're going, you will always revert back to the old story. So I noticed this, and I noticed like there was something there. Like it's not about a training program or a nutrition plan. Anyone can create that. Go onto Google, type it in, you'll find something. Does that mean you're going to have success with it? Not always. Why? The mindset, the self-talk, that is the block. So then I went all in on the self-talk and the blocks, but I had to sort of like, it wasn't like I was blindsiding girls with what actually they needed to work on, but say this. I promote, you want to lose 20 pounds. Okay. Yeah. Tons of people want to lose 20 pounds. Does everyone want to work on their internal self-talk? Not always. No. Not many people want to go there. So then you still showcase it as you want to lose this weight, but then when they're in, then you show them the shadow sides of why they are where they are. So then I stopped doing just the weight loss and I started integrating that the mindset and the self-talk and the belief. And it actually took better than I was letting myself believe that it would. And it actually started creating like a lot of clientele, and people wanted that side of work. So now I'll still showcase like the health and fitness, and like sometimes I'll post in the gym, not often, but it's more so orientated towards the energy work, mindset work, self-belief, self-talk. And people nowadays, we're in the age of the awakening, right? You know this, we know this. So people are becoming much more interested, and they desire a life by design, and they desire living on purpose. So they're more inclined to be like, yeah, that's something I want to get into. Then they see their friends, they see these retreats, they see all this incredible transformation and expansion happening, and now they're in, because we're all in the day and age where it's like you don't believe what you've been programmed to believe. You know, some things you've been lied to pretty much your whole life about pretty much everything. And now you're taking it into your own hands to be like, okay, how do I go from here? What do I want my life to look like?
Hey, darling, I just want to interrupt real quick to let you know about a free event that I'm running in December. Catch Your Breath is a 5-day breathwork journey experience inside of a private Facebook page. And what you can expect is daily breath practices of expansion, daily breath for anger, grief, low vibration, anxiety, impatience, and self-sabotage. These were the most requested practices that I've received in the last few months. And so I want to bring them to you, especially during the holiday season. Catch Your Breath, December 16th, 20th, free inside of Facebook. Registration is in the show notes.
So then transferring from the fitness side of things, it's still an important piece, like we talked about before, about getting to the gym for whatever purpose that is. But now there's a whole nother dimension that brings so much more meaning to me and so much more passion to me that I can teach the clients and the girls in the realm.
Amazing. I love this so much. And so with that, like you've really created like quite the community. You've got Rise Daily is the page that we've been connecting on mostly in terms of getting us onto this conversation. I have multiple girlfriends who are in that program with you. I don't know if you can call it a program, but they're in that community with you and just raving about it. Can you talk a little bit about it? And then with that, you know, you're hosting retreats with these women, and it just feels like I have this deep desire for like real connection. Yes, internet's amazing. And I'm so grateful for, oh, you're in Portugal. I'm in Canada right now. We get to connect because of technology and the internet. Yay. But there's this deep craving for more in-person connection, like human touch. And I was just following your Portugal retreat online. And so tell us a little bit about this community you've created and the retreats. And yeah, I kind of want to know, what's your favorite part about it all?
So with the Rise Daily program, there's my group mentorship, which is called the Self Mastery Circle.
Mm-hmm.
So everything in life is designed from self. And when we have the relationship with ourself right, the relationship with the world and others is also right. You can never have a relationship good with the world, other people, your business, if the relationship with self isn't there. So self mastery. I started self mastery. It'll be, holy shit, 2 or 3 years ago now. And I was called because I was helping a lot of clients one on one. And as you know, with one on one coaching, it's exhausting. It takes up a lot of time and space. And I wanted to be able to help more people. So at the time, I had 17 to 18 one on one calls per week. So you can imagine that it was energy. There's a lot of energy output. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way where I can still impact these women's lives in a positive way, but help more people and have it in one space. So then I decided to create a group mentorship. So it's the Self Mastery Circle. We meet every single Sunday. So 10 a.m. PST every Sunday. For the girls that can't make it live, there's recordings available. So we'll be doing our 102nd call this coming Sunday.
Wow.
And it's all around the realms of self-talk, abundance, archetypes, belief, patterns, the golden algorithm, finances, relationships, everything that creates your life, health and fitness, we talk about on Self Mastery. So that's like one of my favorite places to be because it impacts so many women and you have access to it all the time. So no matter where you are, whether you're live or you're not, you have access to the Self Mastery Circle. And then from that, I do one-on-one coaching for business and life, but it's designed around where you are and what you're looking to improve and accomplish. And then it's customized and curated to exactly that. So my programs, they're not like something that you sign up for and then you just have like plug and play. It's intimate, it's one-on-one, it's a life designed for you, which to me is a really important piece because if you have big aspirations and big goals, it's important that you have a system and you have a guideline and you have a mentor and you have someone who's on your side and cheering you on. And I think the biggest impact with my coaching is just that there's like anyone who works in my realm is like, you're like the sister I never had. I know how important it is to have that accountability, the support, for someone to believe in you, for someone to lend you their beliefs, for someone to speak life into you, for someone to tell you you can do it and give you that permission. That's what a lot of us lack. And that's what I lacked when I was first just developing myself, was like that belief. Can I do this? Is this for me? I didn't really know. So I speak life into my girls, which takes them onto a whole new trajectory of their life. So there's the group and then there's the one-on-one and then the retreats. So just before we started this podcast, I launched the VIP tickets for the retreat in Kelowna. So that's Kelowna, April 12th to 15th of 2025. And it's a 3-night, 4-day all-inclusive. I do all of my retreats all-inclusive. So it's like you come, you don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about the stay. You stay with us. You have a mansion. You spend the night together. Like it's just like a sisterhood. It's 4 days, 3 nights of a sisterhood. You're connected. The women that come to the retreat, they leave never the same.
Yeah.
And I say that lightly, and it's so fucking true. If you're aware of any of the girls that have been to their retreats and you see where they've been over the last year, it's astonishing. Like it truly is. Sometimes I have to like pinch myself to be like, is this actually what happens at these retreats? It doesn't. It happens every time. And it's really cool because we're doing the one in April and it's going to be almost 1 year to the date of the last retreat. Cool. So to see where the girls are in space and time from the last retreat to a year. And then what I like to do too at the retreats is we speak out loud as if it is of where you'll be 1 year from now. Yeah. So we'll have the girls come back on stage speaking about where they're at, and then also project that into the next year. And then it gives you incentive, it gives you something to work on, it gives you that passion, that fuel, that next step. So the retreats are one of my favorite things to do because, like yourself, I love the in-person connection. Online is great because, like you said, I'm in Portugal right now, you're in BC, we're on this podcast. It's amazing. It's going to reach thousands of women. That's so cool that we have this opportunity. And then to add to that is just like the in-person style, the space where you get to connect, you get to feel each other's energy, you get to be with each other in real time. And that's probably my favorite part of what I do.
Yeah, I relate to that so much. Hosting retreats, if I could host retreats and just have that be all I did, that would actually be incredibly satisfying.
That's it. Let's do 5 a year.
I would happily do 5 a year. Just to like really reiterate what you said, like people leave and they're just not the same. There's something unexplainable and magical that happens in retreat spaces generally.
And I think it is.
Yeah.
I think, because I know where you're going with that and I know what you feel with that, I feel like it's the women being seen and heard and felt for maybe the first time ever.
Exactly.
To be seen, to be felt, to be heard, to be supported without any other motives or influence or judgment. It allows women to become who they are and to break free from that. The amount of voice that you find when you feel heard, supported by a group of women that sometimes you've never met, and now you're connected like you're fucking sisters. There's something that you couldn't put a price on that.
Absolutely not. I feel
like that's what it is.
I am like so goosebumpy right now. That's it. And I talk about this too, like in my work, so the word healing comes up a lot in my work and well, in the world, it's always a thing, but like what you just said, like for someone to be I'll say it this way, some of our greatest healing and expansion and evolution and growth, which I think are all the same word, just explained differently, come from presence, from being seen, from actually just being seen without someone trying to fix or change, but just like seeing you and just holding compassion and space for that and not even considering the fact that anything would need to be changed or different. Like that is so profound for someone. And it's, it's ultimately what we've always needed from the time we were teeny, teeny, tiny. We were just desiring presence.
Yeah.
And someone to be there.
We do a lot of that work in the retreats. I'm sure you do in yours too, where you're faced with someone and you're not speaking or they're speaking or vice versa. And you're just there and you're just present with them.
Yeah.
And every time, even for me, it brings me to tears every time because you feel seen. And it's not a common thing. We live in a day and age now where it's like, yes, people are present, but they're also present doing other things while they're trying to speak to you. Not everyone all the time has that full present attention of you're the only thing that matters. I have nothing else to say, but I'm listening to you. I'm here for you without reservation.
Yeah.
That is something that comes often. So when you have that and you experience that, it takes you literally to a new level internally because you've experienced that.
Yeah. So the practice that I was taught was it's called a dyad practice. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
So and I do them all the time. And when I first started doing dyad practices, and for those who are listening who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, it's sort of what Azaria was just saying. It's like you're sitting in front, you're sitting with someone, and oftentimes there's like a question or a prompt brought forward. One person speaks and the other is just holding space and listening. And not even like at no point are we even saying like, oh yeah, me too. Or I know what that's like. There's just nothing. There's emotion if there needs to be. There's acknowledgement. There's like, you can touch your heart if they're sharing tenderly, but there's no verbal interruption so that person actually just gets to be in full expression. And then they pass it off and ask the question back to the other person and change positions. And we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth is the way that I generally do a dyad. When I was first taught a dyad, it was so painfully uncomfortable for me because I wanted to, I'm the person who wanted to make sure that they knew that I understood. So there was a lot of like, oh yeah, me too. Oh, I know, totally. Like just wanting to feel connected because my old dialogue was that in order to be connected, there needed to be like a verbal exchange. They needed to know that I've been there before, when actually connection is it can be in silence. It can just be in this presence. But I caught myself time and time again, like going to say something and having to just sit in it. And then on the flip side, being the one speaking, like you talk about reclaiming being seen. Holy, like that was painfully uncomfortable for quite a while to just be seen as I process this question and try to respond and in my emotion. And yeah, it's a beautiful practice.
It's even fun doing that and not having any conversation of just locking eyes and just being that person. And without even speaking, like you just said, it's not even a conversation. There's no conversation back and forth. It's the presence, it's the energy, it's what's felt.
Yeah.
So even locking eyes and being with someone in that moment of being with them and no verbal exchange, that brings up so much emotion.
So much.
Things that you never even think would come up at that time because you're just with this person, you're fully seen, nothing's being said, and you're in that moment. When was the last time you've ever done that? I do a lot of mirror work with my clients. I'm sure you're very familiar with mirror work. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with looking at the mirror and speaking to themselves. So they don't do it, or you run away, or you do it really fast, you close your eyes, or whatever the case is. And then when you can get to the point where you can look at yourself in the mirror. So for anyone listening, this is something that you can try on today. It's something that I always encourage my clients to do. I would walk into the mirror and I'd put my right hand on my throat chakra and I would look myself dead in the eye. And I would repeat this 10 times. I'm willing to release all resentment. I forgive you. I love you. I'm willing to release all resentment. I forgive you. I love you. And what this does is you walk into your day much different because we walk around with so much unresolved resentment that sometimes we don't even know we're carrying. Maybe it happened 10 years ago. Maybe you've never spoken it in your life, but it's stored somewhere in your system. In your energy system, it's somewhere there. So then you're triggered or you're alarmed or something goes off and you're freaking out. And if we can start the day releasing that resentment, forgiving ourselves for carrying it, you will bring a brand new energy for your day with just that alone.
Yeah. Yeah, mirror work. She's a shocker, that one sometimes.
It is. And it seems like such a simple, easy thing, right? And then you go to do it and like, okay, this is it. I get it now.
Like this is so uncomfortable. Yeah. Well, I like coming back to that eye gaze. That is one of the most intimate things we can do with another person. And so to do it with yourself, right? Like how to notice how disconnected we've
If you're
become.
not doing it with yourself, how can you do it with anyone else? If you
Totally
are unable or feel so uncomfortable that you're unable to look at yourself in the eye, how do you ever expect yourself to look at your husband or your wife or your friends, or your partners, or whoever you're with? How do you expect to have that real connection with them if the one with you is lacking?
Yeah, precisely. That's like the takeaway statement of the whole conversation. Yeah. Yeah. And I think about too, like eye gazing, it's truly like sitting with someone, presence, eye gazing can be more intimate than sex. Like depending on what your sex life is, it could be just as fulfilling, if not maybe even more.
Yeah.
Can we talked about this really kind of briefly before we hit record, but the idea, and it's a little bit of a like curveball back, but imperfection. And I'm wondering, well, I'm kind of assuming that because you work with women, you're probably coming up against women who are feeling like they need to show up perfectly and they need to be doing things perfectly. And okay, Azaria's given me this program, so I need to do it perfectly. What's your feeling? How do you support people with the idea of like imperfect action versus
not even my clients, me, that is me. That was me right before the call. Like I said, we launched the VIP package, 30 minutes before you and I were to connect. And I'm sitting there and it's like, it was 10 minutes to 8. And I'm like, there's like some back end things, when you release something, there's like something that technically needs to be done a bit different to have it work well. So that's where we're at. And I've got an awesome support team that's like helping me with this. My husband's amazing. And I'm like, I think I'm going to have to reschedule the podcast. I don't know if I can do this. And he's like, sweetie, breathe. Just talk to me. What do you need? What do you need help with right now? What do you need so that you can feel good about this? I'm like, I don't know. And then in my mind, I'm like, how am I gonna sit and have this amazing podcast with this girl that I admire, and how's it gonna be? And in my mind, I was like playing all these stories, and then he's just like, just breathe. And then in that moment, I was like, okay, you're trying to make the whole day be perfect, because here's the thing with perfection, okay? Say for whatever reason, I was so worked up that I was like, I have to reschedule this podcast with you.
Yeah.
Which is what clients do too when they're wanting to join something new. Say somebody's joining your membership or your mastermind or self-mastered, the retreat. And in our mind, we go, we can't now. It has to be done differently. It's not perfect yet. When you get to that next perfect point, for example, say I'm like, hey girl, need to reschedule. Let's do it next Tuesday. You're like, no problem. Next Tuesday, see you then.
Yeah.
Come next Tuesday, there would have been something in my mind that would have triggered me to be like, can't do it now. So I'm aware of this. And usually what happened like before this podcast doesn't happen to me. That's like a very one-off thing, which was funny to me that that was happening, because I'm like, this is hilarious, because that never is typically how I show up. I would never reschedule. That was just like immediate thing, because I always show up for my commitments. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of women that I work with that, and I'm sure in your realm as well, that we need it to be this perfect situation, this perfect scenario, this perfect caption, this perfect photo, this, perfect that, when all that it really is we're afraid to make a mistake. And we're afraid to be seen for maybe what it will be. And that's all that it was for me today. I was like, what if my mind's somewhere else and not here? I was afraid of that. It wasn't that it needed to be perfect, but I was afraid of the other possibility. Same with women, that I work with a lot of women in the coaching side of things that are wanting to step into the online space, but they're sitting there redoing their content, not sure of their message, because they need this perfect message and this perfectly curated thing to put out. So then it never happens, and it's months after months after month after month that you continue to put these things off. So there is no perfect time, which is the perfect time because you get to create it. So when it comes to a relationship, a move, joining a program, joining a retreat, doing a podcast, it will always be the perfect time that you create. And that's where we take our power back in those moments, and we say, so there is no perfect time. So the perfect time for me is right now. Mm-hmm. Being ready is a decision, and it's not a feeling. It's something that you decide to do. You're deciding in that moment, just like I decided, I'm ready for this podcast. We're good. Ready to launch these tickets. We're good. You're ready to join your mastermind. You're good. Like, you make that decision, and the emotion then follows that decision. That's how it works. You make the decision, the emotion follows, you start to build momentum. So there is no perfect time but the time that you create. And I think that's such an important piece to take with life, so that you're not always procrastinating, waiting for that time. And then now you're 65 years old and you're like still waiting for that perfect time that never came.
Yeah. 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 Thank you for that. And like, what is time even? It's all, just like, what are we waiting for? Like, what are we actually waiting for?
What is it?
What is it?
And I think it's the fear is what keeps a lot of people. Not even so much that people are waiting literally for something that won't come. It's the fear of X, Y, and Z that keeps people stuck.
Yeah. And it, like, so often, I can't say every time, I won't say every time, but so often, more times than not, whatever the thing is that we're afraid of, maybe it's making an investment in ourselves or joining a thing or having the conversation with our father that we need to have. It's like, always on the other side of it. It's just like, so much easier than I thought. This feels so good. Like, always.
Always.
Our fear is just this like big old weird storyteller that makes things so much bigger and weirder than they actually are.
When you feel the pressure start, and the pressure will be off. That's something that I learned years ago. And it's true for every situation in life where you're like, I feel pressure, I feel overwhelmed. Start whatever that is, and the pressure will subside. The reason that you feel the pressure is because the story that you've created around it, which adds energy to it, which makes it big, which makes it this big pressured moment. Mm-hmm. And then you just start, you just, pop the pin in the balloon and it just kind of starts to shrivel. That's what we do to the story when you start to take action on whatever that is for you. And then you're like, oh, it wasn't really that big. Take doing taxes, for example. Mm-hmm. Most people are like,
it's a great example.
I pay taxes. I don't pay my taxes. And then they wait like a year to do their taxes. And then they build this big story around it. And then they start to do it, or they hire an accountant. And it's like, really? That's what I was like putting off. It's not that big of a deal, but it's that story. It's that fear that we create around it. And if you just start, then that pressure would be relieved and you'd be well on your way.
Totally. Totally. Better than ever before.
Better than ever before.
Okay, now I want to go right back to the very beginning of you being in the living room on your knees praying to God. That was obviously a really big challenge that you overcame. And I'm curious if there has been other challenges through your journey that you feel have really supported you and how you can show up and support women if you feel like sharing any.
Other challenges that I've overcome or that I've been through.
I feel like that's the same thing.
Overcome or been through it and overcome. Yeah. So the eating disorder would be a big one.
Okay, didn't know about that.
Yeah, eating disorder, which also bodybuilding helped me out of. But I noticed that not doing bodybuilding, I tend to go back to that little state of anorexia. It's so funny because it's like I was anorexic before I started bodybuilding, like deathly afraid of food. Like maybe would eat, I don't even know how much I would eat a day, like maybe 100 grams of egg whites or something like that, like very, very minimal. I would drink like a small glass of water max. Like I would not drink.
Sorry.
And yeah, girl, it was really, really bad. And so overcoming that with bodybuilding, because I had to learn to eat and I had to fuel to build muscle. I put on like 40 pounds in the 10 years of bodybuilding. That's a lot of weight for like, I'm 5'3", like I'm short,
you're short.
You know?
You're teeny,
I'm
like
shorty.
me.
So that, but then I noticed when I'm not doing shows and I'm not like diligent on eating, I'll go back to that. Like not even on purpose, but it's something that was so integrated in me. And it was something that it was just like a habit, a thing that I did. If I'm not diligent with eating, I'll revert back. I'll have like 2 meals a day. And it's like, that's not how I keep my body. That's not how I can keep my body fueled. So I'm aware of it and I catch it every time. And my husband's really good at like, hey, did you eat enough food today? Did you eat enough food? And then if I'm not, if I don't, he notices and he helps me like to see it of like, yeah, I need like a couple more meals before the day ends. Because otherwise it's really easy for me to slip back into that sort of disordered eating. And another one that I've overcome would be like the fear of what people think of me. That was like a really big thing, especially in the bodybuilding world. I was always afraid of what people thought, if they liked me, if they didn't, did they like the way I looked, all these stories. Over the last few years, I've overcome that with knowing that most people don't know what they think about themselves. So how on earth and why on earth would I take what their criticism is towards me and take that to heart? And I also have realized over the last little bit too, is that somebody's perception of me is always an internal reflection of them. So it's not always about me, and it usually never is. With somebody's opinion, it's usually where they're at. So understanding that in life has given me so much internal freedom because now I just know that people will meet me where they are and that it never really has anything to do with me anyways. And that's freed me from the what will people think of me mentality, knowing that it doesn't really matter and it never did. And that's why.
Yeah. It's like that. What other people think of you is none of your business.
Yeah. That one, I'm trying to think of other challenges. This is an interesting question because I feel like life is always presenting something.
Always.
Yeah.
It is funny. It's almost like a resume question. I was sitting at Starbucks the other day working, which I literally never do, but I needed out of the house. It's really close to my house. And there was a Starbucks interview going on beside me. And that question feels like an interview question. Like, tell me a time when there was conflict and you had to discuss it with your manager and that's what that question felt like, but also important because, we all have stuff and we all have so much wisdom to share. And so how we move through the challenges that come our way can be just really inspiring and really, really beautiful information for other people.
I think of another one.
Sure. Yes.
Being diligent with allocated time blocks.
Yes. Okay. Now
that's something that I've challenged. What's that?
So now we're talking business.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So is that cool?
Totally. It's just like such a good reminder.
Yeah. That's something that I've like yo-yoed with being good with and then needing support with and good with and support with. And it really comes down to like present moment awareness.
Yeah.
What's important at that time. And then understanding that you can't get it all done and you don't need to. So why try? So we as entrepreneurs, maybe you can relate to this, maybe you can't, but I feel like there's always something to do.
I have lists everywhere.
Yeah. So there's lists, there's all these to-dos. And for me, it's like, if I don't have I term it as what is enough for me today. So like, for example, this morning I written out what is enough for me today. I did a house clean. I had a one-on-one client meeting, podcast with you, launch date of the retreat. So I have those important things written down.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't have down is all the other things that could take up that time that would, at the end of the day, make you feel drained and make you feel depleted.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to have the what is enough for me written down every day so that I stick to what is enough for me that day. Because I know if I don't, tomorrow I'm not going to be in my optimal state.
Yeah.
We only have so much energy to give in a certain day. We only have so much bandwidth in a certain day. And if we're expending that everywhere all the time, you're going to be left feeling really dry and really empty. And that's not a place I want to be. So I'm always having to remind myself of my time blocks and the importance of them, because like you, I'm excited about my work. I'm passionate about what I do. There's always something to do and something to create or to promote or talk about or to read. And then if you're trying to do all these things every single day, it can feel really exhausting. So that's always a challenge that I'm up against with like being creative, being an entrepreneur, having all these passion projects and ideas and being like, okay, they're all going to get done, but they just don't have to get all done right here in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Good permission piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say like, okay, how am I going to say this? I know it's like one world, but I'm going to place it as two worlds. You have your bodybuilding world and you have Rise Daily. And from the outside, those could look like two very different worlds. And I love like the way you've married them together appears incredibly seamless and like very correct. It's like, of course she's doing this. Like it just makes so much sense, which is really, really beautiful.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like to even like contradict my whole like they look like two different like they could be two different worlds. It's like why is bodybuilding not considered a spiritual practice? Of course it is. Like don't tell me that you're not like at the bottom of a really heavy squat, you're not talking to God. Like of course you're talking to God. Oh my God. So they, everything is a spiritual practice and everything is connecting us to this deeper part of ourselves if we allow it. But I'm just curious, this will probably be like our last thread of talking before, we go in our separate ways and call this conversation. But when you're working with people and they're at the beginning phase of their journey, of their healing journey or their self-discovery journey or whatever you maybe want to call it, like what is do you have like a process? Do you start people in a certain, like, this is where we're going to start? I know that you love supporting people in this space. I'm just curious about like, maybe what are your favorite pieces? What do you find most fascinating about this healing journey, personal growth journey?
Yeah. So to start, I always want my clients and the women I work with to get clear on where they're at, but not stay there, and then create a story on where they're going. So we do this technique practice called new story, old story. So in the old story, you would write, my name is Azaria. This is where I live. This is what I look like. These are my habits. This is what I do. This is what is going on for me. And you would write it as your current life. And then when that is done, you take your time, you'd have fun with it. You would write out your new story, but you would also write that out in present tense. So my name is Azaria, and I would write out my biggest dreams, my biggest desires as if it's already happening. It's important to write and speak in present tense so that you're in the moment being there instead of the I want, which is lack, right? So we would do a new story, old story. And then I take your two stories and we bridge the gap. And all that it is, bridging gap, bridging gap, bridging gap. How can we get you closer to your new story every single week, every single day? So then we put together an actionable plan, whether that be cleaning up your eating habits, getting a training program going, joining self-mastery, developing your self-talk. What are your beliefs? We go through all of that because all of that makes you you. And then you bridge the gap and you bridge the gap until we get you to the point, which happens every time, that you're living your new story. And then you're in the state of bliss and you're living a good life and you're living a life you're proud of and you're healthy and you've dropped 30 pounds and all these amazing things are happening. Crazy story too. Okay. So Self-mastery is a group membership, as we talked about before. Say you join, right? You join, we're 101 calls in. This Sunday will be 102.
Yeah.
You have access to 101 calls of past coaching, right? So then it's up to you, being self-led, to go through the calls and develop your own sense of self-mastery and apply everything in the teachings. So some girls who sign up do that. The 1% or 2% don't, for whatever reason. They're in the community and they don't do that. But the girls who do, I'll use a girl, I don't need to say her name, but she's in self-mastery. She joined 3 months ago. She was in a really, really dark space. She had her old story written out and her new story written out. She was living with her now, like old partner at the time. She was living with her partner. They were in a relationship for years. They weren't well, but she didn't know how to move through it. He sees her new story on the cupboard and knows that he has no place in it. The new story didn't really project anything that they were living, how they were living, and who she was living with. It wasn't intentional that he saw the new story, but he did, and it was meant to happen. It was meant to happen. Fast forward to, in that time, she was devastated. She was going to be on her own. She's never been on her own before. She doesn't know what to do, where to go. She has no idea. Fast forward to today, she's gone through all the self-mastery calls. She joins every live call. She applies all of the teachings. Self-led, okay? So this isn't me telling her what to eat. This is me providing a general workout program, but that's it. No check-ins, no nothing. Her being self-led through self-mastery. She is now down 30 pounds. It's the lightest she's ever weighed in 10 years, since before high school. She's going back to see her family, which she hasn't seen because the old partner didn't allow it. She smiles. She's happy. She feels like she has purpose. And that was all to do with her deciding, I'm in a really shitty space and I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to join these calls. I'm going to go through all the past calls, and I'm going to be self-led, and I'm going to make something of my life. And that is what she's done. And that is the work that happens when you apply what you learn. I feel like so much of the time people join masterminds or courses or all these different things, read these books, and then they're left with no application. Read less books, do less of that, but apply what you know, and you're going to have way more success in all avenues of your life if you apply what you know in that moment.
Yeah.
And I
3
can
months.
off track of your question, saying that conversation. What was the question?
It was kind of an open-ended question, but it was kind of this piece around like, what is your, what was
the starting point? Where would you start? Yeah. So that's what it was. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So like the new story, world story, bridging the gap, and then speaking life, holding someone accountable, being their cheerleader, being their friend, allowing people to know that there is support. There's good people in the world. And the best thing about community support, as I'm sure you have with your community support too, is it's community. You feel like you're involved in something. It gives you inspiration. You motivate each other. Everyone's in it together. So it gives like a different dynamic of like, holy shit, I can do this. Like all these other girls are doing it too. Let's do this together. We're all kind of the same people. So starting there, and then knowing that it's possible for you, knowing that whatever you want in your life, just like we were talking about where you want to be, location wise, knowing that that's possible for you, knowing that there's nothing that you cannot be, do, or have. It's all right there for you. And like for me, being from anorexic and depressed, and I had no money, I had like no aspirations. I was like, I had nothing to me at that time. And getting from there to where I am now, that's why I'm so confident in what I teach, because of what I've overcome and because how I've done it. And not just that I did it once, but I've continued to do it over a year, and it's been like tested and proven, and like things are happening. But it comes from that self-belief that I have within now of like, there's nothing that's too out of reach or too broad or impossible for me to do. I know that anything that I want to do, and if I set my mind to it, I will and I can achieve. Yeah. And I think that's important if somebody's just starting out, to adopt that belief system that anything you want is possible, and that there's nothing outside of you that you cannot attain.
Yeah. And having your mentor, your leader, your coach, whatever title we give it, AKA you in this situation, who believes that in like every cell of their body, is so important, because they will borrow, like they'll just get to borrow from you until it's their own.
That's the thing, the ripple effect. The
Yeah.
ripple effect. Like some of the girls that I coach, they're coaches, and then they teach their clients, and then their clients teach their friends. And it's like,
Right.
pictured of, I have this crazy vision. Do we have a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. I had this vision at the retreat. We were all laying in meditation. It was after a cacao ceremony. It was really, really beautiful. And we were in like the middle of the mountains, right? Like we were literally secluded in the mountains in this beautiful resort by ourselves. And what I saw was, I saw like the resort, and I saw these mountains and these trees. And then I saw all of us laying. And like on like your phone, like the maps, there's like a pin, like
Mhm.
the red pin. So there was like pins, and there were us, and it was radiating all of this incredibly bright energy. And it was like trickling throughout the world like this. It was like pulsating. And
Mhm.
that's what was happening at the retreat, was like all of these women said yes to their lives, yes to their expansion,
Yeah.
yes to their healing. And we showed up as a collective. There's so much fucking power in the collective.
Mhm.
And we showed up, and it was like a ripple effect. And now they take
Mhm.
it home with them, and now they share with their friends with them. And the ripple effect keeps growing, and it grows and it
Mhm.
grows. And that's the power of community. And that, like, I'm a very visual person. I see things much differently how most people do.
Mhm.
So when I had that download, I was like, that's what's happening at
Yeah.
all of these times. The sacred spaces, when we come together,
Yeah.
create the ripple effect. And then, the next person, the next person, the next person, to make this life as beautiful as we can.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I recently was in a medicine ceremony,
Yeah.
and it was a phenomenally beautiful experience. I had so many downloads and so many like ahas, and the one of them that came through, and I can't even share it visually because it was, well, I was on mushrooms, and to like
Yeah.
to even put English language to that is impossible. But it was just what you just said. It was the visualization of what a ripple effect is, and
Yeah.
how it's happening regardless. Like, it's happening regardless of how we show up and how we share. And so if we're showing up in shit energy, that ripples as well. If we're showing up in negativity and gossip and anger and density, that is rippling as well. And so, what's be the change you want to see in the world? It's not just a pretty plaque that you put on your wall. Like, read those words out loud, think about what they mean, and we actually do get to be that change. Do we want to see more connection and peace and community? Great.
Yeah.
Like, be the ripple. So it's so powerful. And so
Yeah.
I love that you had that visual. Um, yeah, it's so powerful. Oh,
I
I
feel like
love
I could talk for hours because I have so many stories to share.
forever. We'll just do a second one. We'll just book it.
Yeah,
We'll just do a second one. I do have a breathwork session that I have to go facilitate.
of course.
I would love to. Okay, so as we tie this one up with a pretty little bow, we will do a second
Yeah.
one. Um, Tell the people how we find you, what's happening. Is Self Mastery open all the time? Do you open doors sometimes? Tell us the things.
Yeah. So you can find me personally on Instagram at AZ_fitness. And then my Rise Daily page is linked there. It's just Rise Daily __. The retreat in Kelowna is open to general public on the
Okay.
28th. So that's Thursday, which is tomorrow. We're recording this on a Wednesday. So that'll be April 12th to the 15th. It'll be an expansive experience, and anyone in your realm, I'm sure, is going to benefit
Mhm.
from that experience too. And what was the other question?
Where can we find you? Is Self Mastery? Oh, is Self
Yeah.
Mastery open all the time?
Yeah. So self mastery, I do like to keep it open.
Okay.
So I used to have it on Wednesdays, but now if you go to the link in my profile or the Rise Daily, you'll find like Self Mastery Circle membership, and you can
Okay.
sign up there. And as soon as you sign up, you have access. I didn't want to like limit people, say they want to sign up on a Thursday. And it's, a week away. I didn't want to limit that. So
Mhm.
it's just open for when you're ready to expand. There's no contract. There's no amount of months that you have to stay. You can come and go as you please. It's like an open-ended thing. I
Yeah.
want you to get what you need from it. And
Mhm.
then most women that are inside, they've been in it for the 2.5 years. Like, it's not a
Mhm.
space you want to leave once you've been. If you
Yeah.
apply it, that's the thing, is like applying the lessons, applying the teachings, joining the calls, getting yourself involved in the community. Because there's difference there with like having the inspiration to, I want to join this community because of what it could bring me, but then actually applying yourself to that community. It's two different things. And I'm sure you're
Mhm.
aware of that as well,
Mhm.
right? But apply yourself, whatever you do in life,
Yeah.
wherever you are, just apply yourself, be present, be there, be known.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
appreciate this. Thank you for
I do
having me
too.
here.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Such a treat. I'll put all of the notes in the details and all the links in the show notes. And yeah, share all the goodies with you when it's ready. Thank you so much. Go play in paradise with your love and your puppies. I know it's evening time for you, so maybe playtime's over for the day, but enjoy paradise.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye. All right, beauty. Thank you so much for listening. I'm curious how that was for you. Of course, leave a comment below or find me over on the Instagram land, and we can keep this conversation rolling. I have a favor. If you haven't yet already left a review or a rating to the podcast, it really helps. And if you have, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you are afraid of ever missing an episode, you can just hit the subscribe button and be updated every time there's a new release. Of course, we release every Monday, and then on occasion, there's some bonus episodes. I love you. Hope you have a really, really wonderful, sweet day.